till the day I die. Ahoo! Till the day I die. Till the day I die. Do I know what I've got into? Do I care that he's mine? Do I want a new beginning? Why can't I decide? Could it be that I'm not ready? Could it be that I won't try? Could it be that he is perfect or the wrong guy? But when I look into his eyes, I'm feeling high, and we ain't never gonna say goodbye. 'Cause baby, loving you makes me high. You're my guy, I'm loving you, I love you till the day I die. And we ain't never gonna say goodbye. 'Cause baby, loving Never thought I'd be with him more. Never thought I'd want his hug. Never thought I'd kiss his lips and falling in love. Didn't want a happy ending. Didn't wanna be his bride. Didn't wanna feel these feelings all of the time. But when I look into his eyes, I'm feeling high, and we ain't never gonna say goodbye. 'Cause baby, loving you makes me high. You're my guy, I'm loving you, I love you till the day. You makes me high. You're my guy, I'm loving you, I love you till the day I die. Till the day I die, I'll love you till the day I die. Till the day I die. But when I look into his eyes, I'm feeling high, and we ain't never gonna say goodbye. 'Cause baby, loving you makes me high. You're my guy, I'm loving you, I love you till the day I die. And we ain't never gonna say goodbye. 'Cause baby, loving you makes me high. You're my guy, I'm loving you, I love you till the day I want you, I'm needing you, I hold you till the day I kiss you, I'm missing you, I love you till the day I die. Till the day I die, I love you till the day I die.
Check, check.
Confusion in the yard.
Never thought I'd be with him more. Never thought I'd want his hug. Never thought I'd kiss his lips and falling in love. Didn't want a happy ending. Didn't wanna be his bride. Didn't wanna feel these feelings all of the time. But when I look into his eyes, I'm feeling high. And we ain't never gonna say goodbye. 'Cause baby, loving you makes me high. You're my guy. I'm loving you. I love you till the day I die. And we ain't never gonna say goodbye. 'Cause baby, loving you makes me high. You're my guy. I'm loving you. I love you till the day I die. Till the day I die. Ahoo! Till the day I die. Till the day I die. Do I know what I've got into? Do I care that he's mine? Do I want a new beginning? Why can't I decide? Could it be that I'm not ready? Could it be
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Steinberg Sessions streaming. I'm very rustly tonight. I'm not sure what I did wrong, but we'll try to adjust that. Welcome back. It's great to, I guess, see you in the chat. I can't actually see you. I was going to do a bunch of raise your hands jokes, but I can't see you. So anyway, please chat. I have kind of bad news tonight. JG, the OG, is not with us. She's actually on vacation, a well-deserved vacation. Everyone requires a vacation, and particularly JG, because she works like a maniac. However, I have good news as well. We have Alicia this evening. Alicia is part of JG's department, corporate communications at Yamaha Canada Music. And Alicia is awesome and fun, and she knows a whole bunch about the stuff. And so if you have any questions or anything to say, or if I'm completely screwing this up and you would rather Alicia get on here and talk to y'all, you should put that in the chat, which is over there. That's why I keep pointing at it over there, because it's right there so I can get your questions. Anyway, thanks for coming again and checking this out. I'm starting to get used to talking into my computer and talking into my camera. I've been promising you from the beginning that we were going to get the tech together better, and I think that tonight the tech is going to be better. I should look better because I got a better camera right here. Not using a crappy webcam anymore. I got like a Canon 5D Mark III with a really fancy lens happening here. So this should look better, and I'm going to be able to share my screen with you tonight as well, which should make for a much better Steinberg Nuendo Cubase experience. So without further ado, let's get to it, shall we? So I mentioned, for those that sort of follow, there's Yamaha Canada Solutions on Facebook, Yamaha Canada Solutions on Facebook. We've got a group there, and for those of you that aren't a member of that and want to find out about these things, please join. We'll accept you. I don't post too much because, you know, I know we've all got these pretty awesome curated Facebook feeds, and we don't want to mess with that too much. So I post once a month, usually, sometimes a couple times, but usually just once a month, just to kind of remind you that we're doing this. We do this the last Wednesday of the month. So, you know, if you don't hear from me, we're still happening. Now that I'm doing this from home, there's absolutely no reason to cancel. I'm in the comfort of my own home. I got food upstairs. I got my studio here. Like I'm gonna be here, so there's no reason to ever cancel, unless I'm really sick. But I don't get sick, so we're good. So there won't be any cancellation. So check in at Yamaha Canada Solutions on Facebook, or you can send me an email at solutions@yamaha.ca or bbodrug@yamaha.ca and ask me to put you on the email list, because I send out a message that way as well. And I promise I won't bug you. And if I am bugging you, you can just send me another message and tell me to take you off the list, and then you won't get the emails anymore. But anyway, okay, so we talked about what I've sort of been hinting at this session for a couple months now. We're going to do it tonight. It's the latest thing I did, again with my daughter, but hopefully you don't mind that I'm using my daughter's sessions a couple times here. It is sort of my most important project, as you can imagine. But anyway, so yeah, we just finished this tune, just released it. There's a video on YouTube, it's on Spotify and iTunes and all that kind of stuff. And sort of an aside, just so you know, I'm not just like shamelessly self-promoting my daughter, and that she's actually kind of okay at what she does. She just got asked, she actually won a voting contest, and then it went to the band. We're actually opening the show for Stars, which is a pretty big band out of Montreal, and Dizzy. They've won some Junos, and a couple other bands on the bill. White Horse, and the Sadies. It's kind of a big deal. We're doing this drive-in concert on Labor Day weekend. So my daughter is pretty great, and I'm super excited to be working with you. But even if you don't love my daughter's music, or you can ignore the fact that it's my daughter, I think there's a lot to be gained from these sessions that we've done, because we spend quite a bit of time working things out. And this one in particular, it's a song called Till the Day I Die. I played you in with it. This one had a bit of an evolution, which I think was fun, hopefully informative for you guys, and I think it's sort of an interesting journey that we should talk about. The other thing that happened is my good friend Tony from up north. He runs a Club Cubase Steinberg sessions up north. He sent me a whole bunch of questions ahead of time. I love that. So if you guys have questions and you want me to talk about something specific, send them to me ahead of time. I'm totally just going to go through his questions in the middle of the thing here. So Tony's going to get answers. You guys are going to get some insights into the kinds of things that he's wondering about, and hopefully those will help you with some of the things you guys are working on as well. So anyway, the song. So I thought it would be fun. One of the things that we talk about is kind of, which parts are songwriting, which parts are production. Well, we're going to break all that down for you today. And I thought it would be fun in this case to actually play you the songwriting demo. Now, it's not a demo. Siobhan, my daughter, and I, we wrote this tune in my parents' living room, had a digital piano set up with speakers built in, nothing fancy. There was no computer. I basically had my phone and a digital piano with speakers. And, we wrote this pretty quick. I'd say it was probably within, half an hour or something like that. And so it came together pretty quick. But what you'll hear from the demo, which I'll play for you, it's not a demo, it's just a voice recorder, phone recording, is how, when I write, I document things. But I think what you'll get from that is how basic this thing started, when it was just a demo. And I think it's interesting to hear it go from there to where it ended up. So let me play for you from my phone here the demo. I'll play a verse and a chorus just so you can kind of hear what it is. The sound quality is terrible, just letting you know. And Siobhan's going to hate me for playing this because she had been singing for about 3 hours at this point, and maybe it's not her best performance. But the point is that this is how it all started. So here we go. All right. That's probably about all I'm allowed to play before she's going to disown me as a father. But anyway, so as you can tell, I know I'm a geek and I'm always talking about plugins and I'm always talking about production and gear and stuff. But really for me, when it comes to the songwriting part of the process, that's all it is for me, is a piano or a guitar and my phone recorder. I used to use one of those little dictaphone things that people used to, old people like me used to take to university classes and record the professor. had like those little answering machine tapes. Yeah, so it's for old people. Anyway, so so anyway, that's a demo for me, and I'm sorry. I'm sure that's very underwhelming for those that imagined that it was some big tech Cubase process, but it isn't for me. That's how it begins. So let's get right into Tony's questions, because they talk about sort of from that stage to where we end up. And Tony's first question is, how do you set up your vocal channel and microphone during the songwriting stage? Well, there is no microphone other than the one built into my phone. So that's how it begins. I think what Tony is maybe getting at is, how do I record this guide vocal or scratch vocal that I always talk about? And we'll get to that in a second. Is what you record intended to be disposable? That is, to be replaced later? Yeah. Anyway, how do you set up master out channels? So that's a Cubase. What plugins? Is this the same, or is this the same or similar to the final version? We'll get to that in a minute. How do you handle tempo? Now, if we play the demo again for a sec. Now, if I play you the final version, you'll hear that the tempo changed a bit. Okay, whoops. Okay, so the finished track is a little bit faster. So how did we arrive at that? Well, I talked about this in a couple of the live sessions that I did before the whole pandemic thing, and we took this online. And this is a really critical stage for me. This is maybe the most important part of the production process. And I know that sounds like I'm overstating, but I have to say, early in my time producing records, when I made a mistake with the tempo, it impacted the entire production. In other words, if I set the wrong tempo ahead of time, it didn't matter how many hours or how many great parts or how many things I did to the song to try to make it sound amazing. If the tempo was wrong, by the time I got to the mix, the tune was wrong, and it wasn't as successful in terms of a finished version as it could have been. So the tempo, I can't understate how important the tempo is. And how do I go about that? Well, as I've said in some of the live sessions, what I tend to do is I start with the demo and I figure out what the natural place was. And the mistake I made early in my career is I would sort of start there, and then I would pick up the instrument, either a guitar or a piano or whatever, and I would play until it kind of felt good. And mistake, total mistake. Because even though it feels good to play, that might not be where it sounds the best. And there's a huge discrepancy often, not always, but often, between how something feels to play versus how something sounds to a listener. And again, this is a thing that took years to figure out in the studio. Oftentimes players would come in and they would feel like they were being pushed, or it was either too fast or it was too slow, and they couldn't quite feel comfortable in the beginning, and they somehow thought that was the wrong tempo. But by the time the song was done, it felt right. And oftentimes it's only the change from what you're used to that feels uncomfortable. And once you get used to the tempo, it starts to feel comfortable. So how do I decide what the best tempo is if it's not about how it feels to the player? It's based on vocal phrasing. And because this song has the da-da-da-da-da-da-da kind of vocal phrasing, the timing of that was critical. And so I had to sort of find it. What I typically do is I push it until it's a little bit too fast, because I'd rather have something on the fast side than on the slow side. Why? Because if it's on the slow side, it tends to be boring and sleepy, And if the tempo is slower, the song is longer. And I'm a fan of shorter songs because I'd rather somebody listens to my song 4 times because it's 2.5 minutes than twice because it's 5 minutes. Because if they've heard the song 4 times, it's more embedded in their earworm, in their memory. It's more a part of who they are, and they're going to typically like it more if they've heard it more times. That's why radio just plays things over and over and over again, is because if you keep hearing it, eventually you'll like it, or at least that's the theory. Anyway, so I push it to the fastest until it's a little too fast, until the vocal phrasing feels a little too rushed. And then I just back it back until it kind of settles into a place. And there's usually a place where it sits in a nice pocket, probably faster than the songwriting demo, particularly in this case it was. But I look for that place where it's on the fast side of the vocal phrasing, but it feels comfortable. It doesn't feel too fast. And again, the same thing can apply to a singer as does with an instrumentalist, that initially it might be a little bit uncomfortable, but as they get used to it, it can settle into a place that starts to feel comfortable. So that's how I set the tempo. And, Tony was asking me, what if the tempo changes, through the recording process? And I can tell you that since I've been basing the tempo on vocal phrasing, not one time have I ever gotten to the end of a production and felt it was the wrong tempo. It always works for me, and so I would recommend that you do that. So I've never, since this time has happened, I've never had to face it. Tony wants to know, but if I do make a mistake, what do I do? Do I re-record or do I use time warp? Well, early in my career, time warp wasn't available, so re-recording was the only way around it. But would I use time warp now? Absolutely, I would. Time warp is a great tool. It impacts the sonic quality of the audio a teeny little bit, and so I wouldn't want to use it too much for super critical things. Having said that, in my days of doing sort of like club remixes for people, where I had to take a vocal and make new beats and things around it, oftentimes I wanted to change the tempo, and I did use it on a lead vocal, and it did work. So time warp and those kinds of time stretching used to be called Time Bandit in the old days, the Steinberg version. Those things work. They definitely work, and they're great tools to help out. Tony's also asking, how do I handle the harmony, do a MIDI audio, and if the timing changes. Again, it tends not to. But again, when I'm in the early stages of figuring out the tempo, I don't commit to any audio. I usually try to do the original scratch tracks with a MIDI piano so that I can speed it up and find the right tempo. But once I find the tempo, I commit. One of the things I think that in a modern production world that isn't a great thing is we never have to commit. We can always change things down the road. We can come back and fix a mix, or we can come back and change a sound. And again, I've used all these these parts of modern production. They can be very, very useful, but they're dangerous because it's easy to never commit to anything because you can always go back. I'm a big fan of making commitments early in the process. Commit to a sound, record it as audio. Commit to a tempo, record it. That way, the projects don't take forever to finish, because it's always an open thing that you can go back to, any time. Sometimes it's impossible to finish these things, and so I think it's important to make decisions. Good producing is about making decisions. That's what it really is about. So I would encourage you to commit to the tempo, commit to the things, get it right, but once you've gotten it right, commit to it and move forward. So kind of back to the session. Let's get into the session here a little bit. And, so Tony's asking, when I record the first scratch vocal, does it matter? Am I going to keep it? Well, when I first put in a MIDI piano, there's a bit of a MIDI piano in here. which actually was from my scratch track. That was the other thing he was asking about is, do I, are the parts that are in early, are those things that I want to keep in the mix? And in this case, I had intended to replay my piano part here. But I decided that I liked it, and I just ended up using it. I think I changed the sound because it was a MIDI thing, but I kept it. So here's the piano part. This is the chorus. So pretty simple, pretty basic, and whenever I put the first scratch track in, oftentimes I don't even play much rhythm at all. I'll just play like block chords, and have some sort of a click track or something. We've talked about clicks in other sessions, but yeah, a lot of times it's just basic marking the chords because I don't want to influence the vocal, because again, at the end of the day, the vocal is everything. The vocal is the most important part. So what did we have? So we put in the scratch vocal. Do I record it with my proper mic, with my proper settings, now with my daughter, I have an advantage because I work with her all the time, and my studio I don't use for a whole bunch of other projects with other people all the time, and so I've sort of dedicated a vocal channel to her, and my setup doesn't change. I don't move a knob. I've set it exactly the way I like it, and I don't change it. So every time she has to do a vocal, I just plug the mic in, turn everything on, and I'm good to go. It's the same every time. Would I try to do that anyway? Yes. In the old days when I had my studio and I had all kinds of singers coming through and we were recording scratch vocals and stuff, I used to document on paper exactly what the settings were. And then when someone that I had worked with before came into my studio, I would bring up the settings exactly how they had been in the past. And that way, if we recorded something and it was good, I could always use it. So do I want to record my initial scratch vocal so that I can use it in a final vocal? Yes. Even if I'm intending to re-record it at some point? Yes. Because no matter what, whenever you record a scratch vocal, somebody, and you've been working on the song for a long time, someone is gonna love that vocal and they're gonna say, hey man, can you use that vocal in the final mix? That would be great. And it happens every time. And again, early in my career, I used to, just pull out a cheap, crappy mic and say, here's the microphone for your guide vocal, and let's just record whatever. We're gonna replace it later anyway. Bad idea, because then when I would re-record the vocal with my really nice mic and have all the settings great, they would want one line from the crappy mic to be going with it, and I would have to spend so long trying to make it all fit, and it's not worth it. So just from the beginning, anything that you record it so that it's going to live in this thing forever. Even if you're going to intend to get rid of it, and even if when you re-record it, it's completely better, it's always good to make sure you get it in the first place. So I promised I would talk about, and please ask questions. I got Alicia helping me here. If I miss something, she can alert me of what's happening. And but let's get into this track a little bit more. Now, in the beginning when we first recorded this, all we had was 2 verses and the chorus. And when we listen to the song in its entirety, there's all these other things that happen. So when did they occur to us? Did they happen in the songwriting stage, or did they happen after? Well, in the case of this, we kind of went on a journey. So let me play you the production track, but with only the original vocal bits that we had, which is the 2 verses and the 2 choruses, and that was it. So here we go from the beginning. So you're going to hear all these instrumental bits and these sections where there's not a lot happening that we filled in with vocal parts later, and we'll get to that and we'll talk about how that happened. So anyway, but here is the song with production the way that it was originally written.
Never thought I'd be with him more. Never thought I'd want his hug. Never thought I'd kiss his lips and falling in love. Didn't want a happy ending. Didn't want to be his bride. Didn't want to feel these feelings all of the time. But when I look into his eyes, I'm feeling high. And we ain't never gonna say goodbye. 'Cause baby, loving you makes me high. You're my guy. I'm loving you. I love you till the day I die. And we ain't never gonna say goodbye. 'Cause baby, loving you makes me high. You're my guy. I'm loving you. I love you till the day I die. Do I know what I've got into? Do I care that he's mine? Do I want a new beginning? Why can't I decide? Could it be that I'm not ready? Could it be that I won't try? Could it be that he is perfect or the wrong guy? But when I look into his eyes, I'm feeling high. And we ain't never gonna say goodbye. 'Cause baby, loving you makes me high. You're my guy. I'm loving you. I love you till the day I die. And we ain't never gonna say goodbye. 'Cause baby, loving you makes me high. You're my guy. I'm loving you. I love you till the day I die.
Okay, so that's as much of the song as we had, that bit. And as you can hear, for those of you that like instrumental things, there was these big long instrumental sections, but as someone who's sort of produced music for the radio, those are like death traps where there's nothing happening and somebody's going to change the station. So I was always aware that something had to happen there. But anyway, that was as much of the song as we had written in that demo form that I played for you on my phone. So the first problem is like, this sounds like there's a seed of a good song here, but that's not enough. We're missing something. And so we sort of thought, well, we've got 2 verses and a chorus. Maybe we could do a breakdown chorus or something and then do a chorus out. That's not entirely satisfying. But then the next thing that happened was we sort of went back to the writing. And we decided that at the end, the big climactic ascending vocal bit, we could sort of rewrite some new lyrics and we could loop it around and make it more of a thing. So as you can hear, I'll play you the last chorus here. And as you can hear, it sort of turned into this bigger thing at the end where we loop around. So that was the next evolution of the vocal arrangement.
But when I look into his eyes,
This is the third chorus.
I'm feeling high. And we ain't never gonna say goodbye. 'Cause baby, loving you makes me high. You're my guy. I'm loving you. I love you till the day I die. And we ain't never gonna say goodbye. 'Cause baby, loving you makes me high. You're my guy. I'm
Okay, so that's something. So that sounds like a little bit more of a tune that evolves and kind of does something. And so that was the next stage of the writing. And that part where we added those bits, that actually happened in the writing stage before we got to the production. But when I started production, that was all I had. And there was still the question of how do we deal with these big, long instrumental death traps? There's no bridge. Do we write a third verse? We just didn't know. But we wanted to record it. We were excited about what we had. So we got to work and we just started working on it. And early on in the production, right after we had started cutting vocals, this thing sort of showed up. And I have it muted here. What it was kind of a foil to the end of the chorus. It was like the chorus ended and it was satisfying, but we felt like we could extend it somehow. And we go back to the verse chord changes, but we felt that we could extend the chorus somehow. So let me play you the end of the chorus, and then let me show you what we added here. So that was supposed to be the end of the chorus. And there's all this instrumental stuff, back to the first chord change. Okay, so while we were working on it, one of us just started singing this other little thing that sounds like this. So I'll add it back in.
Till the day I die. Till the day I die.
Okay, so that kind of finishes the chorus maybe in a more satisfying way. Till the day I die, till the day I die. And then we sort of thought, well, maybe there could be a variation on that. So we thought maybe if we did it sort of more, we could turn it into a new thing. And it's a bit hooky. So this is kind of where it evolved next. And again, I would consider this part of the songwriting, but this happened after production had started. So here's where it evolved after that first little bit.
Till the day I die, I love you till the day I die, till the day I die.
Okay, so we took the till the day I die, and then we altered it a little bit for the second time. I'll love you till the day I die. And then the original idea was just to go back to till the day I die. But then Siobhan improvised the day I die. She added that and we just fell in love with it. So it became a part of the thing. So again, the whole bit here.
Till the day I die, I love you till the day I die, till the day I die.
Okay, so this actually becomes one of the big hooks of the song, and it actually wasn't even in the original song that we wrote. So the moral of this story is that when you start production, the songwriting doesn't have to end. Things can continue to evolve, and until the song is mixed, you're not really done. So that was what happened, and then we wanted to build some variation into it. So at the end of the first chorus, we left the middle bit out, and we repeated the first bit. And so this is the end of the first chorus, and this is how it went down. We wanted to vary it each time so it was interesting and kind of evolve throughout the tune. So this is the end of the first chorus, and this is what we turned that new little bit into.
You're my guy, I'm loving you, I love you till the day I die. Till the day I die.
So repeated the first line, nothing here, and then the
Till the day I die.
So that's how we get it the first time. Very simple, and it's basically the same thing 3 times with that little improvised tag on the end. The second time, as you just heard it, we didn't bring it in right at the end of the chorus like we did the first time. We left a little space, and then you get the whole thing.
Till the day I die, I love you till the day I die. Till the day I die.
So that's the second time. And then the final time at the very end of the tune, we give you the first 2 lines, but we don't give you the third one, and that sounds like this.
I'm loving you, I love you till the day I want you, I'm needing you, I hold you till the day I kiss you, I'm missing you, I love you till the day I die. Till the day I die, I love you till the day I die.
And then nothing. So each time is a variation, but it keeps the hook coming around and around and around again. Now, one final production little note that we did is in the first time, because we get the till the day I die twice, I added this kind of trippy delay thing on one of them just to give it some variation. So that's what this sounds like, and that's what this orange bit is here. I printed a delay track, and then I just cut out the bits that I wanted. So back to the first chorus. Here it is again with the little delay thing.
You're my guy, I'm loving you, I love you till the day I die. Till the day I die. Till the day I
So that little delay thing takes us through that big space there and kind of fills that hole and sort of transitions us back into the groovy bit. So that was that. So now we're starting to get a little bit of shape, but we still have this like intro thing here where there's still nothing and it feels really long. So let me play you the intro to the song again, and we'll show you this thing that we did. So here's the intro.
never thought I'd be with him or never.
Okay, so there's that wobbly synth thing, which, you know, if you haven't heard it too many times, it's pretty hooky and it's a cool bit, but it's a long section. So I had experimented with cutting it in half because I'm a huge fan of the short intro, but I wanted to establish that hook more. So we thought, well, you know, that little ad-lib thing that Siobhan did at the end of the other thing worked, so why doesn't she just kind of ad-lib in these instrumental bits that feel kind of like these parts that need something? And so we did a bunch of takes and she tried a few things, and in the intro what she actually did was sort of sing a similar thing to the wobbly synth bit, and this is what that sounds like if I turn the ad-lib track on. So here's the intro with her ad-lib part, and this was completely improvised.
Never thought I'd be with him or never thought I'd want his hug.
Now, there's no big deal. That's just like a little noodly thing, but I feel like it's kind of a siren and sort of grabs listeners' attention at the beginning of the song. And so again, vocal arrangement, sometimes it comes out of writing and sometimes it just comes out of an improvisation. So that was kind of cool. So then we thought, well, maybe she can do a little bit more ad-libbing. So is there something that can happen in the second part, the second instrumental part? So here's the end of the chorus.
Till the day I die. Till the day I die. Till the day I die.
And that little ooh bit sort of joins those parts where we had the hook and that's about to come up in the next part. But there was a bit of a hole there. So how do we sort of join that and make it sound natural? We added that ooh thing. So let me play it for you again without the ooh, and then you can hear how the ooh sort of extends this and sort of makes it feel more musical, I feel. So here it is without her improvised ooh part.
Till the day I die. Till the day I die. Till the day I die. Do I know what I'm...
Okay, so here it comes with the ooh part. And it sounds a bit empty once you've heard the ooh and you take it away. So now I think you'll find it sounds a lot fuller.
Till the day I die. Till the day I die. Till the day I die. Do I know what I've got?
Now, why an ooh bit and not just keep reusing the hook? Well, that was a contemplation for me, and I certainly had to think about that for a while because, you know, there's an argument that you would just use the hook over and over and over again, and certainly a lot of people that produce music would just hammer you over the head with the hook again and again. But what I wanted to do in this case was I wanted to sort of establish the hook in a simpler way and have it evolve over the course of the tune. And what I loved about that ooh bit is that it was just texture. It's just a nice sound that keeps the vocal in my ears, but it doesn't get in the way of the hook. And so I'm able to establish the hook, keep people's interest with the vocal sound, but still allow me to evolve the hook throughout the tune. So that was the reason for that. Now there's still the big gaping hole, which I tried to address with the delay. I'll let you hear that.
Till the day I die.
Silence. So I'm a big fan of the scary silence. I love scary silence when it's used effectively. But Siobhan also improvised this other thing, which is muted here, and I'll bring it in, which actually made this sound super fun. And so I decided to forego the scary silence for this. And so this becomes the full part of this section.
Till the day I die. Ahoo! Till the day I die. Till the day I die. Do I know what?
Okay, so we went from a very, very empty section to a section that's quite full of vocals. We've established the hook. We've left it open so that we can evolve the hook, but we have these other little fun textural things that sort of keep the vocal in our ears and fill up the section in a way that I think keeps it interesting to the listener. That was the goal anyway. You can tell me if it's interesting or not. But in any case, we weren't done there. This improvising thing was working so well, we thought that we would try it in the end as well, because as you recall, we did the first two lines of that new hook that we added, but we left the third one off. The last track that we released, a song called Can't Replace, which I broke down in a previous session, She finished that version with this really beautiful falsetto head voice, Billie Eilish. I don't know if those of you that know who Billie Eilish is. It was kind of in the style of Billie Eilish, and it was such a wonderful tone that we talked about, well, maybe we should finish this tune in the same way and sort of establish a bit of a signature, even though it's a little derivative of a popular artist right now. But so we tried some different things, and we settled on this, which again is sort of in the style of Billie Eilish, and sort of in the style of the end of the other song. But I felt like, we both felt like it really finished the song in a nice way. So without her improvisation, here's the ending again, so you can hear it without the improv. Now, I certainly have no problem with ending the tune that way. I think that's a great ending when the vocal finishes and just the track takes it out. And I was pretty committed to finishing it that way for a long time. But then Siobhan improvised this, and it had to be. And that just felt like the perfect way to end the song. So, all this extra stuff happened again after the production was almost done, frankly. Like the lead vocal was kind of cut, and we didn't have any harmonies or anything, but we were sort of settled on the track, and we were pretty settled on what was happening in the lead vocal. And so all these things, which I think I'm going to play you the whole song now with all these extra bits in. And you can hear how now there's vocal from top to bottom, but keeping in mind how much of that was in the original songwriting versus what happened sort of once the production had begun. I want to point out one other thing which I did, which is a very common production technique. I doubled the lead vocal in the chorus, and originally I doubled it all the way through, but in the mix, I decided that I wanted certain lines to come out. So if we listen to the chorus again, here's the chorus without the double, and then I'm going to point out to you, this is the, if I look on the tracks here, this is the double here. So you'll see that it goes away in certain points, and we can actually just make it a little more obvious. So you can see that it goes away in certain points for the Cubase geeks. This little thing up in the top right here. This is how you make the waveform look bigger or smaller. It doesn't impact what you hear. It just is what you see. So if you're editing or you want to see something more clearly, you can turn it up and down here. So for those of you that didn't know that. But anyway, here's the chorus vocal, just the single vocal, and then I'll add the double, and you can see it's a very subtle thing, but it just makes the vocal come up a little bit. So here's the chorus vocal on its own.
Look into his eyes, I'm feeling high, and we ain't never gonna say goodbye, 'cause baby, loving you makes me high. You're my guy, I'm loving you, I love you till the day I die, and we ain't never gonna say goodbye, 'cause baby, loving you makes me high. You're my guy, I'm loving you, I love you till the day I die.
Okay, so the double here, and it's pretty low in the mix, so I'm gonna turn it up just a little teeny bit for you guys, so you can kind of hear what's going on a little bit better. This would be it right here. So let's turn it up just a bit. So everything's grouped. So now let me play it for you with the double, and you can hear the difference. You can particularly hear it on the first line. Let me mute it again and play the first line, and then we'll add it. So.
Look into his eyes. eyes. I'm feeling high.
So there it is without it. Here it is with the double.
Look into his eyes. I'm feeling high.
Makes it
We
bigger.
ain't never gonna say goodbye. 'Cause baby, loving you makes me high. You're my guy. I'm loving you. I love you till the day I die. And we ain't never gonna say goodbye. 'Cause baby, loving you makes me high. You're my guy. I'm loving you. I love you till the day I die.
So I took it off on certain vocals. As I say, I recorded it, the whole thing doubled, and I took it off on certain lines because it just seemed the communication of the lyrics seemed more special when I took it off certain things. When you double things, it tends to dehumanize them a little bit. It makes things big and powerful, but it tends to take a little bit of the directness out of it. So I chose to leave it off in certain parts. So that was what's happening there. So this is where we got to in terms of writing and in terms of the song. And I would say that the songwriting, even though this was quite close to the end of the production, the songwriting wasn't completed until this point. So now that we have all the parts that came about let me play the whole song, and then all this business down here is all background things that we added. So, but let me give you some perspective first. So here's the song with just all those parts that we just talked about.
Never thought I'd be with him more. Never thought I'd want his hug. Never thought I'd kiss his lips and falling in love. Didn't want a happy ending. Didn't want to be his bride. Didn't want to feel these feelings all of the time. But when I look into his eyes, I'm feeling high. And we ain't never gonna say goodbye. 'Cause baby, loving you makes me high. You're my guy. I'm loving you. I love you till the day I die. And we ain't never gonna say goodbye. 'Cause baby, loving you makes me high. You're my guy. I'm loving you. I love you till the day I die. Till the day I die. Ahoo! Till the day I die. Till the day I die. Do I know what I've got into? Do I care that he's mine? Do I want a new beginning? Why can't I decide? Could it be that I'm not ready?
Okay. One of the things that is still remarkable to me is I think my favorite hook of the whole song is the part that came later, the till the day I die, that bit. Like, that's my favorite hook in the whole song. And it wasn't even part of the original tune. So if you have a song that's almost perfect and it's, you know, it's missing something, keep working on it because it'll come. Keep working on it. For anyone that's interested, there's some horn bits and things in there. How to come up with horn parts? Well, the way that I think about that kind of arranging, if anyone's into that kind of thing, is the line actually, if you listen to it, it's actually the vocal melody displaced. So I just used the vocal melody, moved it into the hole where there is no vocal, and harmonized it based on the chord changes that are happening there, which makes it sound a little bit different. But it's actually a cop of the lead vocal melody. So again, all the stuff comes out of the lead vocal. The lead vocal is everything, and it's the same with the hi-hat parts in this. All of the rhythms come from the rhythm of the lead vocal. Every arrangement part that's in this has something to do with coming from the lead vocal and was inspired by the lead vocal. So when you start thinking about arranging, that's sort of how I think about it, for what it's worth. And it's a great way. It sort of subliminally enhances the vocal without people actually even realizing what's happening. So anyway, this session was called Anatomy of a Vocal Arrangement, and it certainly wouldn't be a finished vocal without some harmonies. And it's funny because in this one, there were so many vocals, and it took almost as long to figure out what, because we were having fun, it took almost as long to figure out what background vocals were going to be in this song as it did to figure out what the lead vocal was going to be. But one of the first things we did, if we go to the end part here, where as I explained earlier, where it loops around in the third chorus and we repeat the thing with new lyrics, I'll play that for you right now.
'Cause baby, you're amazing high. You're my guy. I'm loving you. I love you till the day I want you. I'm needing you. I hold you till the day I kiss you. I'm missing you. I love you till the day I die.
Okay, so the day I's in that, the way Siobhan leans into them, those felt like day I, like we needed to do something with that. For me, that needed to be big, we needed to emphasize it. So one of the first things we did as a background vocal part, which isn't really a background vocal, we ended up doing it with harmonies and in octaves and things, but it's essentially just Siobhan layered over and over and over again with this day I part. And so in the mix, it was a lot of work to make this, but you're just getting the finished version here. So this is what it sounds like. Let me play it for you again without this part so you can hear the day I's, and I'll do the fist thing again so you can see what's going on. So
'Cause baby, loving you, amazing high. You're my guy. I'm loving you. I love you till the day I want you. I'm needing you. I hold you till the day I kiss you. I'm missing you. I love you till the day I die.
okay, so we wanted to make something of these day I's. So this is what we did to enhance them. I can turn this up if you can't hear it, but again, it took me a long time to find the right level because it's so big. Sometimes it was too much, and other times if I turned it down, I didn't get enough impact. So I think this is the right level, but if somebody wants to hear it louder, put a little message and I can turn it up a little bit. But anyway, here it is with this enhancement.
'Cause baby, loving you, amazing high. You're my guy. I'm loving you. I love you till the day I want you. I'm needing you. I hold you till the day I kiss you. I'm missing you. I love you till the day I die.
So if we just hear, I think it's pretty obvious what's happening there. If we just hear the day I's by themselves, this is what they sound like. Whoops, here we go, let's try that again. Lots of reverb. So all that is like a bunch of doubles of the original vocal, an octave lower, and then a harmony, and all tripled, quadrupled, like layers and layers of stuff with massive reverb, and then just sort of blended and mixed. So here it is one more time. Okay, so let's hear it in the context of the song. Here it is with the lead vocal.
I'm loving you, I love you till the day I want you, I'm needing you, I hold you till the day I kiss you, I'm missing you, I love you till the day I die.
Okay, so if I take it out now, it should sound a little bit emptier, a little more naked. So here it is with just the lead vocal without this bit in.
I'm loving you, I love you till the day I want you, I'm needing you, I hold you till the day I kiss you.
I'm just missing that. I need that big thing. So here it is one more time with everything in.
I'm loving you, I love you till the day I want you, I'm needing you, I hold you till the day I kiss you, I'm missing you, I love you till the day I die.
Okay, so a subtle production thing that you might not have even heard on the first couple of listens of the song, but I think those sorts of things, again, they increase your track count, but I think they're subtle and I think they make a huge difference to how the overall impact of the song is. So that was the first thing we did with the background vocals. Then the next thing we did was, because it was a little bit easier than maybe tackling the big chorus, because this is a pretty big pop chorus and obviously we were going to get there, but we decided what we would do in the verses. And so here's the first verse, just the way that it is.
Never thought I'd be with him more, never thought I'd want his hug, never thought I'd kiss his lips and falling in love. Didn't want a happy ending, didn't want to be his bride, didn't want to feel these feelings all of the time. But when I look into his eyes.
Okay, so that is just the verse. Now, I didn't want to do too much off the top because I think that it's kind of a halftime tune for the most part in the chorus, but the phrasing in the verse is really fun and upbeat, and I didn't want to mess with it too much. But I felt like we could foreshadow that there was going to be some big vocal things happening later. So we decided to just harmonize on this one line so you can hear that, and I've just put it into the mix now. So
Never thought I'd be with him more, never thought I'd want his hug, never thought I'd kiss his lips and falling in love. Didn't want a happy ending, didn't want to be his bride, didn't want to feel these feelings all of the time.
so there's the harmony.
But when I look into his eyes, I'm feeling.
Okay, and then the doubled chorus comes in, and so the vocal gets bigger in the chorus just by virtue of the fact that there's a double there. So that's all we did in the first verse, just that one line. I'll play it for you one more time so you can hear it again. It's this line. This line is the line.
Be his bride, didn't want to feel these feelings all of the time.
Didn't want to feel these feelings all the time. So here it is in the context one more time.
Never thought I'd be with him more, never thought I'd want his hug, never thought I'd kiss his lips and falling in love. Didn't want a happy ending, didn't want to be his bride, didn't want to feel these feelings all of the time. But when I look at.
So it's the sixth line or the last line of the verse that we added the harmony to. And we left the "when I look into his eyes," which I'm sort of think of as it's a one-line pre-chorus. So we left that one alone as well. Now, in the second verse, we decided, we've established this already, and in the interest of evolving everything as the song goes along, we felt we could add a little bit more harmony. So in this case, we didn't do only the sixth line, and so this is what the verse sounds like with the harmonies that we added in this verse.
Do I care that he's mine? Do I want a new beginning? Why can't I decide? Could it be that I'm not ready? Could it be that I won't try? Could it be that he is perfect or the wrong guy? But when I look into his eyes.
So this time we did 2 lines of harmony in the verse part, and we also harmonized the little 1-line pre-chorus, when I look into his eyes. So let me play you the first verse with just the 1 line of harmony, and let me play you immediately after the second verse, and you can hear how the second verse is a little bit bigger than the first verse. So we're sort of giving the song a bit of an arc upwards so that it gets more exciting as we go along. So here's the first verse again.
Never thought I'd be with him more. Never thought I'd want his hug. Never thought I'd kiss his lips and falling in love. Didn't want a happy ending. Didn't want to be his bride. Didn't want to feel these feelings all of the time. But when I look into his eyes, I'm feeling high.
Okay, so there's the first one, and here's the second one.
Do I know what I've got into? Do I care that he's mine? Do I want a new beginning? Why can't I decide? Could it be that I'm not ready? Could it be that I won't try? Could it be that he is perfect or the wrong guy? But when I look into his eyes, I'm feeling high.
Okay, so I think it's pretty obvious that the second verse is in a slightly different place than the first verse, and I think it's going in the right direction. Now, there were some instrumental things that changed, but again, we're calling this one Anatomy of a Vocal Arrangement, so we won't get into the instrumental stuff right now. But so going into the first chorus, we had the doubled vocal, and that was enough. I felt like we needed to add something to the second chorus to make it escalate a little bit as well, because I wanted the direction of the song to keep going this way. So what we did, we experimented with a bunch of things. The first thing we did is I had Siobhan double the vocal. I know we already doubled it, but this time she doubled it down the octave. And it just was a bit heavy through the whole thing, but it kind of sounded good just on that exposed first line, and I'll show you what that is. So coming out of the second verse, this is with the harmonized pre-chorus bit. So it was this nice sort of thick sound that it had, and I thought, well, maybe we can just throw the low double in just for that exposed part, and so this is what that sounds like. You can hear it on the high EI part. We'll do it one more time here. And it just gave that line a little bit more weight for me, so I liked it because then, and I took it out again because the instruments come in and the size of the track gets bigger. So I didn't feel that I needed the vocal all the way through, but that one little bit, I felt like it helped. So coming out of the first verse into the first chorus sounds like this.
These feelings all of the time, but when I look into his eyes, I'm feeling high.
Which makes sense to me, but coming into the second chorus sounds like this.
But when I look into his eyes, I'm feeling high. And we ain't.
So just a little bit bigger. Now, I like that so much, I added it going into the third chorus as well. So it happens here.
Feeling high.
Sorry, that didn't play back very well. Here it comes again.
I'm feeling high. And we ain't never.
So same thing. Now, you'll hear on the third chorus, then a harmony comes right after it. So how did this harmony show up? Well, in the first chorus, there's no harmonies, just the double. In the second chorus, we have the low octave double coming into the chorus, and then halfway through, we add a harmony. So let's listen to the second chorus.
I'm feeling high.
the low bit.
And we ain't never gonna say goodbye.
This part is exactly the same as the first chorus. Harmony. Okay, so the harmony comes in there. Now, what did we do in the third verse? Well, I added the harmony for both halves of it. So right off the top, we have harmony in this chorus. Got the do eyes, or day eyes, sorry. Okay, you can see I got one more muted thing here, and what happens is in the second half of the harmony, I add the low octave. So let's just listen to it without the low octave. So here's just the harmony. Okay, and let's do it with this low octave. It's just a little bit bigger. It's just more voices, just more like a gang vocal and just bigger, more climactic. So let's listen to, now that we've got all these backgrounds in, there's some stuff I haven't played for you yet, which is the super most exciting part, but we're saving the best to last. But let's just check out these choruses, just how they evolve as well. So here's the first chorus, which again is just the lead vocal and the double, and that's it.
His eyes, I'm feeling high, and we ain't never gonna say goodbye. 'Cause baby, loving you makes me high. You're my guy, I'm loving you, I love you till the day I die. And we ain't never gonna say goodbye. 'Cause baby, loving you makes me high. You're my guy, I'm loving you, I love you till the day I die.
Okay, so that's the vocal arrangement. Now, the other thing maybe to notice if you're a bit of an instrumental person is in the first half of that chorus, there's no brass horns, no horns. In the second half, I bring the horns in. So that's happening at the same time as all this vocal stuff is happening. So here's the next chorus, here's the second chorus, and halfway through the harmony comes in.
His eyes, I'm feeling high, and we ain't never gonna say goodbye. 'Cause baby, loving you
And that little delay bit.
You're my guy, I'm loving you, I love you till the day I die. And we ain't never gonna say goodbye. 'Cause baby, loving you makes me high. You're my guy, I'm loving you, I love you till the day I die.
Okay, so, and again, you could hear the horns in both halves that time, so that's the other thing. And then we get to the third chorus, which has harmony all the way through, and then adds that low octave double in the second half of the harmony. Plus, one thing I didn't share with you is there's like a crazy big lead vocal that we tracked like when she was super rested and had her full voice, and she's just like ripping it and way up there. So there's an extra lead and there's these harmonies and then the low octave double. So this is what the third chorus sounds like.
I'm feeling high, and we ain't never gonna say goodbye. 'Cause baby, loving you makes me high. You're my guy, I'm loving you, I love you till the day I die. And we ain't never gonna say
Okay, so once again, with the choruses, we've done the same thing that we've done with some of the instrumental stuff, and we've done the same thing that we've done with the verse vocals. We're trying to make it do this, constantly building towards a bigger ending. And I think when you hear the choruses back to back like that, you can hear that it's evolving and that it gets bigger each time. Now, the pièce de résistance, let me just mute this for a second because this is really fun for me. I love doing this stuff. And so we're going to go back to, remember that our little hooky bit that came after we'd started production? This part here, let me play it for you again.
Till the day I
Oh, let's
till the day I die. I love you till the day I die. Till the day I die.
Yeah, remember that bit? Okay, so we fell so much in love with that hook that we thought we got to make a bigger deal of this. And Siobhan loves jazz, and she loves harmonizing, and she loves jazzy harmonies. So we thought we would experiment with this, and she wanted to kill me because these parts were really hard to sing. But I think these parts are pretty special, and again, we changed them up throughout, you know, with the other variations where this part comes in the tune. But let me play it for you, like full whammy here in this section, which is the second time, it's after the second chorus, where we get the whole statement of the hook. I'll play it for you one more time without the harmonies, and then I will add the harmonies, and you can hear what's going on here. So this is the hook as it was written after the fact.
Till the day I die. I love you till the day I die. Till the day I die.
Okay, and here it is with the three part.
Till the day I die. I love you till the day I die. Till the day I die.
Oh man, were those parts hard to sing. But anyway, we did it, she got it, and she feels great about it now that we finally got through it. Okay, so let me play it for you one more time, and then let me show you what we did with it in each time it comes back. So this is the full three-part harmony, which again is after the second chorus when we get the full statement of the hook.
Till the day I die. I love you till the day I die. Till the day I die.
Okay, three part. Now, remember the first time where we were only just establishing a little bit? And by the way, if any of you have questions, now would be a good time to ask, because the feed is a little bit behind where I actually am in real time. So if you ask them now, when I finish talking about this, I'll be able to answer your questions. So please ask them now in the feed. Okay, so this is the first time where we had just the first part repeat and the third part. So we left the second part out. And what I did was so this is the full three-part harmony here. The green is the effects, just the orange and the three different oranges here. This is the three-part. So as you can see, the first time around, I only left one part in. And even the second time it goes around, I had triple tracked it. There's 3 voices on this. I only had 2. So it's a much smaller version of what happens the second time. So here's what it sounds like at the end of the first chorus.
New beginning, why can't
Oh, sorry, we're looking at the verse. This is what happened. I'm sorry. I made a mistake. This is the part. This is the 3-part without 1 part missing. So I only have, this is a double of the lead, and this is 1 harmony. So this is only in 2-part harmony. So here we go.
till the day I die. Till the day I die.
Okay, so pretty different when it's just 2 parts. So here it is one more time with the 2-part.
till the day I die.
And here it is with the 3-part.
Till the day I die.
So it takes on a totally different color, even though those are exactly the same. I just copy and pasted and muted and took things in and out. So those are exactly the same vocal performances. One more time again. Here is the 2-part harmony.
Till the day I die.
And here is exactly the same thing, but with the 3rd part.
Till the day I die.
Totally different thing. Okay, so, and then at the end, you'll remember we did only the first 2 lines of this hooky bit, and we left the 3rd one off and added that little Billie Eilish thing that we talked about. But here's what it sounds like the 3rd time around, and so what I did on this one is I left the 3-part harmony in for the first line, but I broke it down to the 2-part harmony for the 2nd line. So here's how, this is sort of how my brain works when I'm working on vocal arrangements. The first time around, we have 2-part harmony. There's no 3-part harmony. We left out the 2nd line. The 2nd time, we get the full whammy, 3-part on everything. The 3rd time, we get 3-part on the first line, but 2-part on the 2nd line, and then the 3rd line isn't there at all. So here's what it sounds like at the end.
Till the day I die.
3-part,
I love you till the day
2-part.
I
So we're ramping back down.
die.
Sorry, I realized I just lost my webcam, so you can't see me anymore, but you can hopefully still hear me. Okay, so let's just review this. So here's the first time around with this stuff.
Till the day I die. Till the day I die. When
Here's the second go round.
till the day I die. I love you till the day I die. Till the day I die.
And here's the third go round.
Till the day I die. I love you till the day I die.
So that's a lot of variation within that section, which is essentially the same every time. And the only way that I build the arrangement, the vocals are identical each time. The way I build the arrangement is by turning things on and off, and by altering the instruments underneath as well, by turning things on and off. Again, no new parts were played. Well, that's not entirely true. I'll address that in a second. But it's essentially just choosing which things happen where, and I generally have all the parts in the parts that I want to be most climactic, and then I take things out in the parts that are either part of the build or sort of when I start to come down at the end as well. Now, I mentioned I took some parts out, so there was this one little thing. This is worth talking about. Nadine always wants to hear the things that I take out of mixes because she's interested. So this lead part in the intro, the wobbly synthesizer bit, so that part I actually doubled with this kind of double time synthy thing here. Kind of bouncy. Now I love that little bouncy synth so much, but I decided in the final production it was just a little bit too much. But then in other parts of the song, I missed it. So in this case, I don't use it in the intro. If I add it in, take it out. It just really cleans things up when I take it out. But later on in the song, there's this sort of third instrumental bit here, and I added it back in just a little bit.
Till the day I die.
Because it happens in between the vocals. So in this part, it's just doing this. And when I took it out in this part, you can see I took it out here and I took it out here. But in this part, if I take it out, it felt too empty for me, even though the vocals are massive. So.
Till the day I die. I'll love you till the day I die.
So I added it back in those parts just because it filled it out a bit for me. Just a subtle background thing. And I did it at the end here as well. This is back to the wobbly synth part. This. But everything's coming down at this point, so I felt it was kind of cool to have it in. So if I took it out, this is how the tune ends. Just a bit empty. Just felt a bit empty, so I put it back in here. But I have to emphasize how difficult that part was because I love that little bit. I love it so much and I wanted to keep it. But I decided that the song was served better by taking it out in a few places and leaving it in those couple places. The other part, which lived in this tune until the very, very end, but I decided it was one too many things, is this little rim shot fill that I had. And as you can see, it happens 4 times through it. And again, I love this thing so much. It's this. I'll solo it first, and then I'll play it for you in the context. Now, no big deal, but when I was working on the track, it sure sounded like a little instrumental hook for me. So this is what it sounds like in the... And it happens later. Especially there, I loved it, and I almost left it in there. But in this first part, if I play it for you with it in, her vocal is the most important thing. So if I take it out there, I think you can, I'll play it again, you can hear the vocal is important here. Lets me really focus on the vocal. Here it is the second time with it in again. Remember we debated about that ahoo? Well, the ahoo won because I think it's more important. As much as I love that rim shot, I think it was more important. So here it is with just the wahoo without the rim shot. I think it makes the ahoo a little more surprising and exciting when that happens. So those are the kind of decisions that I'm making. I won't delve too far into that. But anyway, back to, I think I missed one of Tony's questions, which I think is an important one. And he asks me, what's on my 2 mix or my stereo output? And is it the same at the beginning of the process as it is at the end? Okay, so I'll answer part 2 first, and then I'll come back to what's on my 2 mix. But obviously in the writing stage, there's nothing on my 2 mix because I'm using my phone, as we've already talked about. But when I start production, I don't have too much on my 2 mix because I want to make sure that the sounds that I'm getting and the sounds that I'm hearing are the sounds. And, you know, I tend to do some EQ and compression and some limiting and things on my 2 mix. And I don't want that to impact my sounds that I'm choosing. So when I'm choosing sounds and when I'm initially putting the arrangement together, I tend not to have any of this stuff on my 2-mix because I want to hear the sounds just as they are without any sort of 2-mix settings influencing how I feel about them. So I tend to not have anything other than sometimes if I need to feel a little more level, sometimes I'll put just the limiter, maybe a little bit of compression just to make it sound a little more finished, if I can use that word. But I tend not to have too much of the rest of the stuff on. Having said that, the minute that my production changes from arrangement to mixing or tracking to mixing, as soon as my mix begins, I put it in right at the beginning. And I have a preset, which I've shared with you guys before, which is some pretty basic settings on everything. And I tend to, it's based on just what I know I'm always going to do based on my style of production. So my preset sort of gives me a generic basic starting place, but I always change things as I go. And a lot of times when I'm mixing and I'm adjusting individual levels, I'm adjusting the 2-mix settings almost as much as I'm adjusting my individual mix levels and stuff. Because every time I adjust a mix level or a sound or an EQ on an individual channel, it impacts what's happening to my 2-mix. So I'm constantly going back and adjusting them. In this case, this is from my presets. The first thing I always have is, this is from the Slate bundles, virtual mix rack, and virtual mix bus is just like a console emulation. And normally, for those of you that have tuned in with me before, you know that I tend to favor the API. That's my favorite sound. But on this mix, I wanted a little more weight in the bottom end, so I went with the end setting, the Neve setting. So there's that. And then I have this revival thing, which is kind of like an oral exciter. It's just like a bit of a shimmer, a top boost, and a thickness or sort of a thump boost. And I don't even know, like it's at 0.6 and top is at 0.6. So it's not doing very much. I drive a little bit on the console here. But that's typical, and that would be something that's in my preset as is. Alicia just messaged me to say that's question from Steve. Steve, I'm getting to your question next, so hang tight, man. We'll get there. Okay, so then the next thing I do is an EQ. This is a Yamaha product. I think it's discontinued at this point. I don't know if we still have it, but it's one of my all-time favorite EQs. It's based on the Rupert Neve Portico series. And oh, does it ever sound good? I mean, there's some new things that sound really great as well. But if you ever see this, or I can look into it, see if we still sell it. I'm not sure if we do or not. But it's quite old now, but it really sounds good. And I still use it on most everything I do. And then that's always followed with the Neve Portico compressor, because it also sounds really good. So I'm just dipping in places. I don't tend to boost a whole lot. Like I'm boosting a little bit in the top end here at almost 12K. I'm boosting like a half a dB. But mostly what I'm doing is just taking out where there's too much of stuff. Compression is doing a little bit. I'll show you what that's doing in a second with the other compressor. So it goes this thing, the virtual mix rack, into an EQ, into a compressor, and then I go into another EQ. Now this is from the UAD, and this is a real finishing EQ. I'm not doing much corrective stuff with this, although in this case I am cutting, but this gives everything more of a polish. I tend to use it. And then I have a second kind of polish EQ with it as well. I used to own the hardware in a rack piece of this, the Millennia NSEQ, which is just, these are both stunning EQs. A lot of mastering engineers use this, and a lot of mastering engineers use this. So again, these are polishing type EQs. I tend not to do too much in terms of fixing things. They just give it a sound. Then I go into my favorite two-mix compressor of all time, which, surprise, surprise, is an API 2500 bus compressor. Now let's kind of check out what is happening in terms of compression. It's not a whole lot.
Till the day I die.
So just barely flickering.
Till the day I die.
So you can see there's not a whole lot of processing happening, just a dB or so in each case, just a little tiny bit. And then the final thing, which is usually on my mix, is the Slate FGX, which you've all heard me talk about before. I tend to use a little bit more compression here, and then I just get level out of this. So let's take a look at what's happening here.
Till the day I die.
So about another half dB of compression here. So there's maybe a couple, 2 or 3 dB overall happening on the whole thing here. But not tons of compression, but I am adding level to get my RMS up to where I want it to be.
Till the day I die.
Now, some people ask, well, what should RMS be? Certainly I don't want my peak to go above 0, and I set mine to minus 0.4. Some people do minus 0.3, some people do minus 0.1. It doesn't matter, just so long as you don't go over 0. But what should the RMS mean? RMS is your average level of your mix. Most commercially released finished masters, the RMS is somewhere between minus 10 and minus 8, which is loud. That's very, very loud. When I'm mixing, I generally try to have my mix land somewhere between minus 12 RMS and minus 10 RMS. And then when it goes to mastering, we get that extra little level out of it. But I find for me, I would even say from minus 14 to minus 10 RMS, that's a pretty good place to be for a mix. So if you watch, you can watch what happens. I'll reset the RMS here. You can see where this mix is living. That's these inside meters here.
Till the day I die.
So you can see it's kind of
Till
living
the day I die.
just above minus 14, which, as I say, is a good place to be. Okay, so that's what's on my 2 mix, and it evolves throughout the mix process. Oh, there was one other thing. There's another EQ at the end here, and it's just doing a dip in the upper mids. That's all that's happening. Why is that there? Why did I need another EQ? Well, I finished the mix, and when I went back to it, I just found there was just too much energy up here, which is around 1.7K. So I just pulled overall, just pulled a little bit of that. In my initial mix, I was happy with it, but then I found it was just too much. And so rather than adjusting all my other settings, I just put one more EQ in and just pulled it down to fix it, which I felt made it sound a little bit better. So that was that. Now, final thing, Steve's question. Your parts are all sliced up. Are they slices from a fully recorded track, or are they separate punched in recordings? That's a good question. They're all sliced up because in a pop song like this, I tend to copy and paste things. So I didn't necessarily play the chorus 3 times to have 3 parts. I tended to just play the chorus once and then just use it 3 times. And where the dynamics in this type of arrangement for me comes from is from turning things on and off and the arrangement part of it. So rather than sort of have an evolution of all the performance of the parts are the same from section to section, but they don't always appear throughout. And in many cases, they'll only appear 1 time or 2 times. So the reason they're all sliced up is because I worked on one section and then just copy and pasted in this case. In terms of all the vocal bits, some of the stuff is copy and pasted, and some is moved around from different takes and different sections. And one of these days, I'll show you guys what the session looks like before I get to the mix stage, and you can see all the cutting and pasting and editing that happens. I deleted all that stuff before we got to the session tonight because I just thought it would make the session too heavy, and I wanted to keep things straightforward for you. But yeah, there's a lot of editing and a lot of takes and a lot of cut and paste before I get to this stage, which is my mix stage. But in a pop arrangement for me, the cutting and pasting and the little blocks that duplicate tend to be just sections that I have moved around and copied for repeat purposes. So that's what's happening there. If there are no other questions, it's 8:44. We're getting dangerously close to that 2-hour mark. Again, you can always email me or post on the Yamaha Canada Solutions Facebook page. If anything goes there, I'm a moderator, so I'll get a notification. But anyway, if there are no further questions, I just want to say thank you again for tuning in, and I hope that this was useful, and I hope that everybody got something from this that you can use in your own productions. I appreciate your support. We'll be back again next month for a new one. I haven't quite figured out what we're going to do yet, but you know, I'm constantly talking to all the Steinberg artists that we have, and the last one was pretty fun with Devin, so hopefully in one of the next couple months we can get a guest again, and tell your friends and so on and so on, and hopefully we'll see you again next time. There's a video for this track, so maybe I'll play you guys out with the video. You guys can see the video, and hope you enjoyed it. And thanks for coming out, and we'll see you next time.
Never thought I'd be with him more. Never thought I'd want his hug. Never thought I'd kiss his lips and falling in love. Didn't want a happy ending. Didn't want to be his bride. Didn't want to feel these feelings all of the time. But when I look into his eyes, I'm feeling high. And we ain't never gonna say goodbye. 'Cause baby, loving you makes me high. You're my guy. I'm loving you. I love you till the day I die. And we ain't never gonna say goodbye. 'Cause baby, loving you makes me high. You're my guy. I'm loving you. I love you till the day I die. Till the day I die.